I'm Matthew from Run Repeat, and this video is going to be my review of the Hoka Speedgoat 4. Now at the moment I'm partway through a bit of a trial run today, ahead of tomorrow when I'll be taking part in the Penclin Winter Ultra, which will take me over the Klin Peninsula, somewhere over there behind us, and up a couple of mountains. The forecast is for some good old-fashioned North Wales weather with heavy rain, so we're expecting some muddy and boggy conditions. It'll be interesting to see how the Speedgoat 4 copes with that challenge. Let's see how we get on tomorrow, and I'll see you on the other side. So we're about a week out from the Penclin Winter Ultra, and I've got to say that the weather was pretty well as anticipated, but the fantastic thing is this shoe proves to be a far more capable off-road shoe than I'd ever considered possible. The upper proved to hold the foot fantastically well, very breathable, but more importantly on a day like we had for the event, water drains very quickly out of it. The outsole proved capable in every type of terrain from thick mud through to wet rock. And not surprisingly, this midsole offered fantastic cushioning. So on to a bit more detail. We set off for the Penclin Winter Ultra with clear skies, pretty similar to those that I recorded the day before the race. But as the dawn broke, the rain started, and it really didn't stop for another 24 hours, to be perfectly honest. So there was no chance of escaping it on the day. So with that in mind, off we went to begin the race. About 170 competitors assembled outside. Quick countdown, an orange flare, and away we went. The first couple of miles included fairly hard-packed trail. From those trails, we began to cross some muddy fields before dropping down onto the beach at Llanbedrog. Climbing up steps from the beach past the Tin Man, we embarked on the first of the more technical sections of trail, a narrow coastal path with an awful lot of rock, very wet rock at this point, ups and downs, and also some sections of the path that really were more stream than path, given the water runoff. And it's at this point that I really got a chance to put the Speedgoat to its test. And I'm going to start with the upper, because what really surprised me from looking at the shoe was just how well the foot was held. At first glance, it seems like you're sitting on a really high platform, but in actual fact, the foot sits partly within the upper section of this midsole, which means your foot is already cradled really well. Coming from the midsole, you've then got these 3D overlays, so the midfoot and the rear of the foot feel really tight, well held, and cradled within this midsole. And yet, the front is really, really roomy. You've got plenty of room for the toe to spray, and I found there was both width and height within that toe box. All in all, a fantastic upper. The tongue isn't really padded or cushioned at all, but it's more than enough to keep you comfortable. And what it does mean is there's no cushioning, there's no foam in there to absorb water. So once again, this aids with what I mentioned earlier, which is water will come straight into the shoe, but it also come right out again. As we came to the end of the headland, I got a really good chance to test the outsole of this shoe, because we were about to embark upon about a half-mile really steep downhill technical section that was obviously wet from the rain and what have you that we had. And this is where the Vibram Mega Grip outsole would really prove its worth. Now, this Vibram outsole has a number of multi-directional lugs running all around the outside of the sole and also within the middle of the sole here. These directional lugs have proved exceptionally capable at gripping on, certainly starting off with the mud and the wet on that path around and over the headland and dropping down the steep slope towards Abersoch Beach. It didn't really matter where I put my foot or where I landed or in what position, the sole would hold onto the surface. The confidence that gives you just grows, and it means you're not worrying about whether you're going to slip or what have you. In fact, the only time I did slip on the whole day was going along a really muddy edge of what turned out to be a field of turnips somewhere up the top high. I don't think I could pick it out on the map right now, but I also don't think I've ever worn a pair of shoes that probably would have kept me upright during that section. The other thing, as I mentioned, is on the headland there was an awful lot of wet rock, and again this gripped pretty well as any rock-like type shoe or any other Innovate shoe which I've tipped on that wet rock. As I mentioned, we dropped onto Outsole Beach, and you can see from the photo here that myself and Tony, who I was running with, tried a bit of synchronized running for a few strides, quite effectively by my reckoning. But then we headed into what was around a 50-mile-an-hour headwind, straight into our faces, before finally getting a bit of protection as we turned right to take the sailor's path, which would take us from Outsole up to Morpha Nevin on the north coast of the peninsula. From here onwards, much of the path and much of the route was essentially on grassland, hillside, and kind of ill-defined paths and sheep tracks and what have you. And so really, this is where the midsole came into its own. The main reason for choosing the Hoka Speedgoat for was because of the midsole, which I hope would provide cushioning for a foot injury I was carrying through this event. Not surprisingly, this huge wedge of foam did exactly that. It runs from 32 mil at the heel through to 28 mil at the toe. So you're talking about a 4 mil drop, but a really thick midsole piece of foam there. What did surprise me was just how stiff this midsole is. And what that does mean, as you land, the midsole provides a fantastic platform for you to move on into the next stride. What I hadn't anticipated also was just how good this was going to be when it came onto those few miles and those few sections we had on tarmac in between the different routes along the hillside. This shoe runs on tarmac almost as comfortably as a road shoe, and that makes a big difference when you've got a few miles behind you and you're suddenly faced with a mile or two of tarmac en route to the next off-road section. A lot of off-road shoes do suggest that they're good for that road to trail section, but I've never found one that I'd be happy in really running more than 100 yards or so in. This one is a big difference. It'll happily take you for a few miles on the roads, and it's not going to drain all of the energy out of your legs while you're doing it. Unfortunately, the race didn't quite finish the way I'd hoped, but for more information on that, you'll have to check out my more detailed written review, which you can always find at RunRepeat.com. But all in all, I found this to be a fantastically capable off-road shoe. The upper is well thought out and well designed. It holds the foot really well and stable. So whilst it looks as if you might be perching on top of a thick platform, you actually feel part of the shoe, and you don't have really that loss of feel or that instability that you might think that you'd get from looking at the shoe. Instead, you do feel very much part of the shoe. You're held in, you've got the confidence that gives you, but you have got loads of space at the front for the feet to display. The outsole is really, really capable. It's done everything that I threw at it, every surface imaginable, and it's given me extreme confidence in running through that, and I'll have no hesitation putting it on again. And this midsole does everything you would expect it to do in terms of cushioning, but also, as I mentioned, it really does give you a great platform, and it actually feels far more fluid than a lot of other shoes and off-road shoes especially you might find on the market today. Overall, anytime I'm doing a long mountain run or ultra type length run, anything over at least a couple of hours or so, there is no hesitation I'd have in reaching with the Hoka Speedgoat 4 again. The only things in which maybe I'd look for a different shoe are those shorter, faster mountain races and fell races, where I'd probably look for something with more flexibility in the sole and a bit more ground feel. But otherwise, for the longer stuff, absolutely, without shadow of a doubt, I'm really pleased I bought this shoe. Thanks again for watching, and please do leave any comments or questions you have below. Cheers for now.